All right. So my name is Nathan. I am an astrologer. This is my friend Caroline. We met at Massage Envy. She was a spa back. Um, that was about 5 years ago. No, just kidding. 3 years ago. Something close to 3 years ago. Um, so today, what we're going to do is Caroline's going to go through a list of personality traits, um, and then I'm going to read the interpretation based on her astrology, and we're going to see how close they match. And I believe that they will be very closely matched. and yeah, we'll just go ahead and dive right into it. All right. So first question. Write down, or it's not a question, but write down some words that come to mind when regarding others' first impression of you and or of your appearance. And the reason I'm reading these uh, requests out loud is so if you wanted to follow along in your own time, you are free to do that. All right. Write down some things that you value and or things that you spend most time or money on. All right. Write down ways in which you communicate, how you move, so that might include body language. You might also include information you feel significant regarding primary education and or siblings. I know it sounds like a random mix, but it makes sense in astrology.
My primary education.
So like elementary school.
So like how it was back then.
Is there anything that stands out to you about that experience? Yeah. Or if nothing comes to mind, I think it's kind of.
Yeah.
All right. Describe your private life slash home life slash family life. And one thing about these statements is that um, however you interpret them is actually really significant. So it's really open to interpretation, and that really influences, or it really shows more deeply how much our unconscious is connected to astrology.
That's a big question.
Yeah. And of course, if you feel like it's just too personal,
no, it's just like it's a lot.
All right. Number 5, write down some of your hobbies and interests. That could be romantic interests included. You may also include children or pets. All right. Number 6, describe your habits regarding health, house, wellness, and work. All right. Describe the general nature of your relationships with others. Are they loving, love-hate, business, familial, or anything else? All right. 8, consider these transitions of life. All right, this is a deep one and a complex one. So transitions in life: birth, sexual maturity, sexual exploration, marriage, moving, aging, death, rebirth. So all those are kind of like in the life cycle. So as you're thinking of those, describe your experience with those transitions of life, or what transitions of life means to you. As much as you want.
Hard question.
write down any specific higher education philosophies or travel experiences that you feel are significant to you. All right. Describe your public life / career, things that you want to be known for, and your goals. Write down any groups you're a part of, affiliations, or communities you associate with. And finally, use your imagination to describe your unconscious, karmic energy, and secrets. Also add any natural settings that resonate with you. All right, cool. So now we're going to go back through and compare notes. So the first question, let's read that again. Write down some words that come to mind regarding others' first impressions of you and or of your appearance. So you go ahead and tell me through.
I just kind of focused on how people act when they first meet me.
Okay.
I see lots of smiles. There's an openness with them, like they've known me already. There's a camaraderie in it, like we're already like really good friends. Easily communicative.
Okay.
I don't know. That's all.
And that's what you feel coming from others towards you. And do you feel that more on your first encounter, or you said that you feel that more as you get to know each other, or you feel?
Well, usually in the first encounter.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
I'll have people that I feel like will. There's a large amount of people that'll kind of, I feel like, attack me in a sense.
Okay.
Because I'm so comfortable with myself, and I feel like that they aren't. But they single me out of pretty much anybody. I don't think as many people get as much hard shit from those kind of people. I don't know. I don't see it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, what I wrote, because your first house is in Scorpio. Scorpio is very intense and deep. So, for those people who are receptive to you, who you feel connected with, I think because Scorpio does deal with sort of that magical side of things, more of the unconscious and more of the spiritual realm, you get that connectivity. But then to the flip side of that, that can also be off-putting to people who aren't ready for that sort of spiritual energy.
Oh God,
and so that does seem a little bit more dark and deep and brooding, and so they're so yeah, I would say first house is kind of match, or so first question, first house. So now we'll go to the next one. Write down some things that you value and or things that you spend most time or money on.
I love doing things outdoors, spiritual endeavors. I spend lots of money on just any like topic of books, fun things, and I spend a lot on my son when I can.
Cool. So the second house is still technically in Scorpio, but right on the cusp of Sagittarius. So as planets move through that second house and it's developing your values, there's a burst of that intense energy from Scorpio, but then it kind of expands into Sagittarius, and it's more about culture and philosophy. So books, I can see, do you like philosophical books?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, there we go.
Since forever.
Yeah, okay. So that would be all that Sagittarius energy right there in the middle. And then towards the end, it tapers down just at the right into Capricorn, who's a little bit more rigid. And you have Uranus and Saturn right on that cusp, so right at the end of your values, which Uranus and Capricorn is very interesting to me because Uranus is almost the opposite of Capricorn. Uranus is all about spontaneity and your innovation. I think in Capricorn, it gives Uranus a little bit more foundation, has more of a scientific mindset, and more about asking questions and doing things methodologically. um, we talked about going outdoors, books, um, and fun stuff, and being with your son, or spending time and money on your son. Um, so you say family is really important to you, and that doesn't necessarily correlate with these signs so much, but I know that later we'll see later on in the chart how that kind of plays in. So that's interesting. All right, so third house, write down some ways in which you communicate and how you move, body language. You might also include information that you feel significant regarding primary education and civil relationships.
Well, I wear like my heart on my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Like people, it's like I'm an open book. Like you look at me and you know what I'm going through, which is really frustrating sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I move around a lot, fidget.
Mm-hmm.
I have these certain tics that I'll just do just because it's comfortable. I like rocking sometimes. It's comfortable for me. Even like a little bit of a humping kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange, but ever since I was a kid, I find a kind of a dance flow in nearly everything I do. Um, Anything physical or just even just messing around the house, like I'll be dancing around. Um, Primary school, I was hyper. I couldn't be put in the same class with my twin brother because we do some really crazy stuff. So it was like a lot to like calm me down. Um, and I just always liked doing things that would get me in trouble. It was the most fun. Um, and I would kind of my twin brother, like he's very much like me, but so opposite too. Like he would always like be, we're gonna get in trouble, Caroline, but I was like force him to do it. I was like, you're going to do this because I'm not gonna get in trouble by myself. And so he'd always do it. He's such a good brother. Oh man. And my older brother, he's a Cancer, very expressive too. Just very like I don't know. He's very big personality.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. Um, so I love that you have a twin brother. Twins in astrology is like so interesting, and like in psychology too. It's just like
yeah. Wow.
So your third house, or what this question deals with, starts in Capricorn. And Capricorn is about tradition. He's a little bit more rigid, more about the patriarchy. Um, so do you feel that any of this has any, or do you feel any paternal influence from any of these answers? Or like, does that relate to your father at all?
My parents got separated at a young age. Maybe well, I was like that even before they got separated, so I guess not. I don't know.
Is that's one thing I find that people with a lot of Capricorn energy are more influenced by their father.
Oh, well, okay. No, I thought you meant why I was like this because of my parents, but I've always had a pull to my dad.
Yeah.
Like we've had a good relationship. That's why when he hurts me because of his own ignorance, it hurts a lot more than when my mom does it because my mom is just. I mean, she's always been like we've always butt heads, but.
Gotcha. And that will probably lead into the family dynamic when we get to the fourth house. So, sorry,
Go ahead.
Fidgeting, and that's just constantly in motion. That's not something I would expect from Capricorn, who's a lot more rigid and pretty much just like nose to the grindstone, does things in a specific order.
That's not me though.
Yeah. So
I do like having an order of things. Like it helps me with my mind, I guess.
Yeah.
So if I put it in a list, I was like, I gotta do this and that, and I'll do it in that kind of order, in that kind of sense.
Gotcha. So another part that stands out to me in the third house is you have your Mars right there on the cusp of the second and third, and then you have Neptune. Mars is your passion and drive, and Neptune is your connection to spirituality. Um, so that ties into a little bit like before, doing things outdoors, being in nature. Um, I think a little bit of that rhythm, where rhythm and vibration, I feel, is kind of earthy, like a Capricorn, although you might see that more in a Taurus, who's ruled by Venus, where Capricorn is ruled by strict and rigid Saturn. Where did I write my notes? Communication more paternal, um, and we find your expression of passion and spirituality through your communication. Um, and you said that you wear your heart on your sleeve, and I would say that that's kind of where that lines up. So moving on to fourth house, describe private life, home life, and family life.
Something with my son I've always done since he was a baby is just like taking it out of the box a little bit, and he just goes nuts for it. And I'll do that with his school friends, and just I kind of like kind of return to like I was a child, and I kind of remember all the things that made me kind of tick and go. And so I'll make my suggestions of him and his friends hanging out, and he just gets a kick out of it because he'll see all his friends like really dig me and like want to hang out with me, and he'll just kind of like parade around like that's my mama, and it's really cute. Um, Elevated tension with my mom, and my my dad and I are like not so much tension, um, but my mom for sure. I just feel like I think like she has like some kind of personality disorder, and it's just it's really hard to get anywhere with her. She's not really working with herself to do the same. But my brothers and I have always been like so close. There's some times when my older brother will try to act like he's the parent and try to like give his opinion about my life when I was going through some things, and which was so off base. But now like he's fine. He's just always been like that, kind of like the parental sibling. But
That's interesting.
but also I don't know. There's a lot of times where just like it was either me and my older brother like acting like we were twins, or it's me and my twin like acting like twins. Like we'd always just like just like really get along, like extra, and really they're my rocks. They're everything to me.
Cool. Um, so what I have, fourth house is spontaneous and unique, or your family life is spontaneous and unique. Um, and it does include, or in your fourth house is Mercury, who really, I should have, I messed up. Mercury really deals more with communication itself. So the planets are like the core energies of um, where that's coming from, and then the house is like the third house that we just talked about is more of how that area of our life develops. Like, so you think of a house as being a place, a setting where that happens, whereas the planet is like the internal part of yourself. So when we're talking about your communication, we're going to see that more in an Aquarius energy, communicating more spontaneously, erratically, and with a little more motion. Um, and you mentioned your older brother kind of being having a parental role. That could go into the category of the third house of sibling relationships, and that could be the expression of Capricorn in your sibling relationships, is that parental authoritarian role. So that's interesting. Also, your sun sign is in your fourth house, so that suggests that's where your soul kind of most resonates and is most bright. Um, and so you probably are most sensitive to your family, and it sounds like the mother-son relationship that you have is very prominent in your life? Because we've already talked about that at least once before. Um, and that's and because the sun is in Pisces, it has a more spiritual, natural influence in your family life. And I would say too that family isn't restricted just to your biological family, but when you see these energies that you resonate more with, especially people who have strong Aquarius or Pisces energy, you're probably going to have that sense of family with those people, um, especially as it gets closer to your sun sign. So let's go ahead and move to number 5, the 5th house. Write down some of your hobbies and interests, romantic interests included. You may also include children or pets. And we already talked about your son.
Right.
Times.
I love dancing. I feel like I'm really good at it. I've been doing it since I could move my body. Singing. I really enjoy singing. Sometimes I'll play guitar, ukulele with it. Disc golf, holistic healing, anything that goes in the holistic realm. I've always loved climbing stuff like trees and rocks. Kind of feeling feeling my adrenaline pump, and stories. I love diving into stories, and I love my cat. My cat is so great. His name is Link. Yeah.
So your 5th house starts in Pisces and carries over into Aries. So Pisces again deals with nature, your spiritual connection. So I love that you included disc golf and holistic healing, being outdoors. And you even said earlier that, where was it? Oh, where you spend most time is being outdoors. So even though like sometimes the categories overlap, and it makes sense when you're interpreting astrology because when planets angle in a certain way and they work in multiple houses, then it just enriches that interpretation, and then we see things like this where answers will overlap. So outdoors being in nature being very prominent in you. And then even that you pick up some of that Aries energy in the end of the development of hobbies and interests for you. So things like sports and dancing and moving, disc golf are all very athletic and getting your adrenaline pumping. It's very Aries. So I see that as being a good match in your 5th house hobbies and interests. That's all I wanted to say on that. All right, let's go to the 6th house. Describe your habits regarding health, house, wellness, and work.
I'm addicted to smoking loose tobacco. I can't smoke like tailor-mades. It just doesn't do the same thing for me. But even like I'll see it mess up my health regimen, because otherwise it's really like I do really well with being healthy, but then I'll just crash down the walls with the stupid addiction. My home can get really messy. I guess I get lazy with putting things up, and I just let it pile up until I just clean it all, which I don't mind. I kind of find cleaning to be very meditative. I like playing music and dancing while I'm cleaning. I feel it's very therapeutic. And then when everything's all clean again, it's very nice because it wasn't clean and now it's clean. It's like that difference. It's refreshing.
Nice, cool.
But I just get in that habit of messy, clean, messy, clean.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So you have Venus and Jupiter in the 6th house, and when those, usually it's when they're in a square or a 90-degree angle in your chart where it represents really more impulsiveness. I was going to say addiction. Sometimes Neptune might be involved, although that's more drug addiction versus um, Venus and Jupiter deal more with wealth and finances, and it could be abundance in other ways too. Although having them both in the same house really works better for you rather than being a challenge for you. Um, so I don't know that saying that interpreting that as addiction would be completely accurate. Now you do have a square between Venus and the Moon, and that might be where that's coming from. Both of those dealing with emotions, and so maybe it could be your emotional response regarding health, and we'll come to the Moon in the ninth house later. We'll see what you've written there. You'd mentioned letting your home get messy and cleaning it and finding that as a meditative practice, and I feel like that again overlaps the sixth and fourth house being just about 60 degrees apart. It does create that harmony. Um, Seeing kind of, I wouldn't say Aquarius is lazy, but just kind of free flowing, and like, you know, if if your home or if your house gets messy, like that's just a part of life, and then you just go through and clean it up, and that's just your routine. Um, I think combining that with Aries, who's very kind of like one way, focus and direct, like Aries in a way is all about just doing you and like just kind of going for it. So like if that's just who you are, like that's just who you are. And I think combining the Aries and Aquarius energy, especially in the fourth and sixth houses, in the home, it really reveals itself there, and your cleaning habits. So go ahead, or what did I write any other notes? Very passionate about health and environment. Passionate about health. We'll come back to that. So let's go ahead and move to seventh house. Describe the general nature of your relationships with others. Are they loving, love, hate, business, or familial, or a combination of all?
I'm thoroughly a lover. Like even when like someone has been blatantly like mistreating me and putting me down, I'll like take it upon myself to even give them even more kindness and try to show them how wrong they are, which sometimes works, and other times it just makes me feel like shit. Just like that energy bringing me usually just brings me down ultimately. Um, and I wrote down my relationship with my mother. It's hard to even say that I love her because of, oh man, it's hard. But I have to remind myself that I feel like that she is sick, and I feel like maybe I even chose her to be my mom so I can grow more, like meet negativity with positivity, which could be my life's goal.
Very interesting to hear you say that. So I guess I'll go ahead and rewind because you're talking about life's goals, and in your fifth house, or more specifically in Pisces, you have your North Node, which deals with destiny. And having the North Node in Pisces is very much that energy of unconditional love, and growing in that energy in this lifetime to learn how to show unconditional love to people. Now, moving back to where we were in the seventh house, your seventh house is right in the middle of Taurus, and Taurus is all about richness, abundance, beauty, and being comfortable in that environment, or comfortable in your relationships, showing love to other people, providing that stability and abundance yourself. And you had said something about something to the effect of killing others with kindness. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of is the dynamic of having the seventh house Taurus and the first house Scorpio, because Scorpio can be kind of intense and kind of like, I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Right, yeah.
Also, you do have, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, but Pluto ruling in Scorpio in your first house, so that really, really deepens your personality and the way that you come out to people, and that comes into a trine with your sun sign in Pisces. Your sun is your identity and your soul, so you have that depth and identity kind of blending together in harmony. So I kind of see that too in that dynamic. That's all I wanted to say for the seventh house. So let's go to the eighth house, considering transitions. This was kind of the complex one that's very deep, talking about birth, sexual maturity, sexual exploration, marriage, moving, aging, death, rebirth. So what is your right? Is your
well, it's kind of hard to choose.
Yeah,
like
it's
what
all
I'm
over the
gonna go
place.
for, but I just see the whole experience of life, even in between these transitions, to be just a whole bunch of death and rebirth, and it it feels like death and it feels like rebirth. Like it's constant. Um, um, I feel like I've been through a lot in all these areas in my life. But it seems like these transitions, like as I get further along, they get easier to be reborn. It doesn't feel as much as a hold on me, like to, I don't know. Um, I don't know, sexual exploration kind of stood out for me in maturity. I feel like I was like going through this, I don't know, always been kind of like very explorative with my sexual life. But then I don't know, I've like through my life have had a lot of abuse, and I see myself in a kind of like a pit. Like it's hard for me to let go because of it, and I feel like that is also linked to spirituality in a way,
sure.
like to be able to let go of what has happened to me, and on a subconscious level, which is just really amazing to me, because I feel like I've healed and I've like done all the steps, but then there's some areas in my life that show me that I haven't, and it's just like, will I? When will I? I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. So your eighth house is on the cusp of Taurus and Gemini, and so as planets move through that, when that the transitions of life are developing, it starts with kind of a grounded weighted energy from Taurus, a little bit more stability, and then breaks into this airy element brought by Gemini, who's more on a mental level and about intellectual relationships, and um, very inquisitive, very childlike. Um, and now you have Chiron in your eighth house, who is represents a karmic wound. So separate from your north node, which would be your destiny, this also deals a little bit with karma and about learning everything you can about this area in which you're wounded, so that you can find healing in that process.
Maybe this is like in my past lives, it's been a thing too. Like I feel like maybe this is not even something from this life that has stopped me, but this is like something that my soul has been going through and needs to let go of.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Death and rebirth.
Alleviates into intellectualism. That's pretty much everything I want to say. All right, ninth house. Write down any specific higher education philosophies or travel experiences that you feel are significant to you.
I've been studying philosophy since I guess I had a rough upbringing, and with my family, and I had a philosophy class, and that really opened some doors, and it seems like set me on my path of I don't know, understanding. And everything points to that everything is connected, and I'm expressing myself in countless fractals. Um, Even with my mom, that's just me. A part of me, like my mom, is a part of me experiencing myself in this area that I need to improve on. Um, there was some time in college where I've had some psychic abilities come to me that were very strong and very intimidating. It felt more like a curse. Um, and so I just kind of got tired of it, and I went traveling with a group of people that I met. And that felt like that's exactly what I needed. Being in the winds of destiny with a group of people that felt like family helped me understand these forces in a way that I could see them as positive strengths and ways I can even put it towards my career in the future.
That's great. So your ninth house starts in Cancer, um, who is uh, the matriarch sign. So it's interesting that you mentioned your mother again. Um, but I can see it very clearly because you also have your moon in Cancer, and the moon rules Cancer. So you just that energy is amplified. Um, so yeah, a very strong connection to the mother, especially dealing with philosophy. And then again, you have that moon square Venus. So that challenge of um, especially on an emotional level, especially between the mother and Venus in Aries is about being your own person and honoring yourself first. Um, and so that comes into conflict, and that can manifest as an internal conflict. Um, but it sounds like in your travels, you've found kind of your family, your um, your invented family in this life, which probably there were probably a lot of Aquarius and Pisces energy in that group you were with, um, who helped you to find that spiritual side of yourself. Because again, you have Sun and Pisces in your fourth house, so being able to develop that spiritual side of yourself with people who you're close to is definitely very helpful in your growth. Um, and that I think really fits well in that ninth house. What else did I say? Exploration is maternal, about creating space for nourishment and growth. Because you have the moon in Pisces in the ninth house, it's very profound. Very, um, you just have a strong subconscious nature of that matriarchal influence, which also ties into mother-son relationship. Um, So let's go ahead and move to the 10th house, 10th statement. Describe your public life slash career, things that you want to be known for, and your goals.
With massage therapy, I feel like I found like my calling, like my destiny. I just feel like it comes very natural to me. And it seems like looking back on my life, it seems like so many things were pushing me and leading me towards this particular career. Um, I do have goals with it too, because I have so many areas in this field that excite me, and like I would like to pick one or like just two, like to really um, be able just to focus on, or just maybe like even like three or four, but that could all like relate to each other and have my own like holistic practice. I really want to learn herbal medicine. Um, I feel like part of what I want to leave a print on this world is to return to our roots of what this earth has to give us, and being able to use it and pass it down to our children.
Cool. Yeah, very generational. Interesting. Um, So your 10th house starts in Leo. Leo is all about being, um, on the one side, very magnificent and regal, likes to be seen. But the other side to that is Leo needs to be around people and needs to be appreciated by people, and so Leos tend to be people pleasers. Um, Now you only have Lilith in Leo in the 10th house. Lilith is a point in space that represents deviance. Um, and so I'm not sure how that might manifest in your work, except that massage therapy is an alternative medicine in a way. I don't know if medicine is more of supplements that would be alternative versus hands-on healing. Um, but it's alternative either way. And I think that is kind of how that deviance manifests, at least in a larger way. And it may be too that Lilith really shows herself, I think, more in subtle ways, being a feminine planet, having more of that subconscious influence. Um, it was interesting about the passing down, being connected to our roots and passing them down from generation to generation, because I do see that as being related to Saturn and Capricorn. So Saturn is about authority and Capricorn is about tradition. So you might think of that as being passed down from generation to generation. Um, that's kind of the relationship between Capricorn and Cancer, the patriarch and matriarch, um, when it comes to generational things like that. And you do have a lot of powerful energy in both signs. Um, Saturn is associated too with where you find your authority, or especially what you choose for a career. Because of course you want to have that confidence and that foundation in what you choose to do and making wealth for yourself and being able to support um, yourself and your family. Um, so I see that what you described as career goals definitely in that Saturn and Capricorn, who does fall in the second house, which deals with values and being able to provide. So let's go to 11th house. Write down any groups you are part of, affiliations, or communities you associate with.
I really enjoy the disc golf community. Everyone's really just fun and easygoing, supportive. Richmond music scene is really enjoyable, and just anything with spiritual gatherings I get a kick out of.
So your 11th house starts in Virgo. Virgo is very organized, simple, can be health oriented, and that seems to be a theme, is being health oriented. So being able to find that community of health oriented people, or people like disc golf, people who are more athletic. And we've talked about like spiritual gatherings, so it's surprising because of your sun in Pisces, and music. I forget which sign really vibes with music. I feel like Gemini is a good one. Cancer is a good one. Um, Sagittarius is standing out in my mind, although I don't know. I don't know. That's maybe just my unconscious talking. But those have all been very significant in interpreting your chart so far. So your answers don't surprise me so much. Although, and you really don't have any planets in your 11th house. And I really feel like the planets represent more of what we identify with. So these questions really are probably going to reflect more the planets and the houses themselves, because the houses are space. So it's kind of hard to relate to space or talk about space or our our lives as being space. It's always about the action that we're doing, and we see ourselves in life rather than life being that which is around us or that's which is happening around us. Um, so how that plays in astrology is that when planets are moving through these houses, um, we see life happening around us, um, rather than when we're interpreting just the natal chart, which is more life within us. I'm trying to think what we have on here. So one thing, so let's talk about spiritual gatherings. Like if the moon was moving through Virgo and creating that energy around us of um, a simple organized time in our life, um, for Caroline, at some point it does come into a trine position, which is a harmony with her Neptune, which is spiritual connection. And so as the moon moves through her 11th house, which influences her relationships with the community, it has a point of harmony with connecting to spirit. So on that day when the moon moves through Virgo and makes that aspect, that would be a very powerful opportunity for Caroline to connect with spiritual people that day. And that's how that kind of works. So let's go to 12th house, which talking about spirituality. Use your imagination to describe your unconscious karmic energy and secrets. Also add any natural settings that resonate with you.
So there's something that's been on my mind. I'm not sure if this life that I'm leading is a result of paying for karmic debt, for things I've done in other lives, or it's just kind of the opposite of like choosing a hard life for myself, so I could grow as much as I can while in this form. But all in all, I'm grateful for the fruits of what has been planted. I see how I've grown through it all, and versus other people who haven't had as much hardship, and I feel grateful for it. Life is water, fire, earth, air, all flowing.
Nice. Cool. I like that one. 12th house starts in Libra, and Libra is about balance, justice, peace, harmony, and love. Um, so as far as like a karmic debt, like that really falls under sort of the judgment, justice aspect of Libra. Um, and you mentioned the four elements and how all of them flow, and that's very Libra too. Um, and the uncertainty too of whether coming into this life to uh, repay a debt or coming into this life to learn how to work through hardship, that sort of ambiguity is also a quality of Libra. So I feel like that's a really strong match. Even though, again, there's no planets there, but what that suggests to me is that during those times of your life when the planets were moving through your 12th house, you probably had some very strong experiences there that stuck in your unconscious and um, gave you that answer, really. All right. So, yeah, these statements to write down and describe were based on the 12 houses. We've gone through each house um, and found some interesting matches. There were some areas that were a little bit of a mismatch, although I think as the conversation went on, we understood that a little bit better of how we just didn't have all the information at that time. And so from that, we know that astrology is a process, that you're not going to get all the information all at once, all in one session. So it's really helpful to get regular sessions so that you can have more information and have that more rich experience from astrology. Do you have any questions, or is there anything that stood out to you that you want maybe a little more clarity on? Any mismatches?
I don't know. It's all interesting to me.
Yeah.
How it's all kind of been mapped out already. But
Yeah.
you think, you see yourself as so individual, but you are from how everything is aligned.
Yeah.
But it's odd to see it mapped out.
But how wonderful too that like we have this resource that it's all right there. This actually can be easy.
Yeah. Very nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really neat. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So this concludes our video. I hope it turns out well. All right.